Hello, this is HalHarris, and this is performance task number 2 for the Senior Director of Custom Strategy Consulting for InstructionPartners. So before we dive into the meat of the presentation, what I wanted to present is my theory of action, and it is as follows. If we say the thing or take the action that gets us closer to looking at student work, then we can identify strengths and assets that allow us to target our implementation gaps, so that we collaborate and secure daily gettable progress for all students, regardless of race or background or circumstance. One of my core beliefs is results first, relationship always. We always want to make sure that we're centering our discourse and centering our productive struggle in student outcomes and making sure that we're giving students an education that allows them to live a life of choice and meaning. However, we always need to make sure we're centering relationships because that's going to allow us the psychological safety to be able to have productive struggle and to conflict cleanly to make sure that conflict does not become interpersonal, but is simply rooted in student behaviors and adult practices. This slide deck overviews the session outcomes as stated on the performance task, and basically is aligning on our vision in regards to how we work as a team in supporting students and developing a scope and sequence, aka an action plan, to ensure that we're closing implementation gaps in regards to what we're seeing in regards to the performance of gradable tasks by students. This is the high-level agenda that will last for a total of 4 hours between the ASU team and the InstructionPartners team. And what I'm going to do right now is go over some pre-work and then go over each section as well. So when I was performing the task, I made some assumptions in regards to pre-work and materials. One of the assumptions I made is that we would ask ASU to share a lot of their data, student performance data, exit tickets, meeting agendas, observation feedback, feedback on meetings, feedback on the next student grouping. So that way we would have time on our end to intellectually prepare. I would also ask for materials that would be needed for jigsaws and annotation of document materials, and would also have printouts for every available person there in regards to the research we'll be examining and our best practices in regards to collaborative planning and observation. The reason why we ask for these things is that part of the session in developing the psychological safety is making sure we're speaking the same language. That when we say feedback, when we say grade level, when we say HQIM, we are all taking the same thing. We are all talking about the same thing, That shared vocabulary, that shared jargon helps to build the psychological safety that does allow for productive struggle, which is going to be necessary as we begin talking about the implementation gaps. For the welcome, we will welcome everyone into the room, review the session outcomes, go over whatever common formative assessment data that we have to root the session on our results, and then go over our norms. Again, clarity is kind, and a lot of our norms will ensure that we're talking directly to each other, we're talking kindly to each other, we're assuming the best of each other. We are centering everything in what's going to be best for students, and that we have a high level of engagement and rigor throughout the entire session. We would then spend some time doing a community builder. And community builders are very important to me because we all need reminders that we are human inside and outside the work. Again, this is very key to building up psychological safety. It's very hard to take something personal with someone who you know some personal things about. And we want to make sure that we're doing that deep work and making sure that we're building up that bank within us, that we're all here for the right reasons. We want students to learn. We believe students can do amazing things, and we are amazing people embarking on this work together. The first thing we would do is spend an hour examining successes, and this is going to be very important in regards to focusing both on adult practice and student work. The key question we're going to be answering during this session is this: what are 2 to 3 collective planning practices your organization is doing to be successful in these areas? And we will spend the next hour using some of the tools that we brought, the collaborative planning tools and the observation and feedback tools, to codify on vocabulary. And if there's evidence that there's codification, find that codification. If this happens to be unconscious competence, what we want to do is to bring that up and make it as explicit as possible. Because if it's explicit, then we can replicate it. So this will be the hour work, and it will mainly be rooted in student work as well in regards to what's going well in regards to the teaming practices, what's going well in regards to dynamic student groupings, and what's going well in the use of HQIM within the classrooms. We will also make sure we're taking an equity lens, not simply with students, but with teachers as well. How are our Black students, our Latinx students, our Asian students doing? And then when it comes to staff, also taking that equity, anti-racist focus as well. Because what we also want to make sure is that if we're being explicit, it's explicit to everyone, and that biases in regards to culture and race are not seeping in. We will spend an hour on this before moving on to the next session, which is our problem of practice, grade level work, and planning practices. The key question we're going to ask here is this. What are 2 to 3 collaborative planning practices we can take from our exam success to close our implementation gap and ensure students are receiving grade level tasks daily? So what we would do is first do a jigsaw, as we did in the last section of jigsawing throughout the observation practices. We would jigsaw the opportunity limit by TNTP, which talks a lot about how bias seeps in to the delivery of HQIM and results in students not really getting real work on a daily basis. Sometimes in the math problem, it's changing up the numbers so computations are easier. Sometimes in an ELA text, it means skipping over the portion of productive struggle or ensuring students are not writing about the author's craft. But what we first want to do, since this is the problem of practice, is have them dive into the evidence. Begin connecting that evidence to their current context and get their perceptions, and then begin using the strengths to spot the implementation gaps. What are we doing with dynamic teaming? What are we doing with HQIM? What are we doing with the team-based model that's not working when it comes to preparing and designing grade level tasks for students? We then also, again, want to have that hard equity and anti-racism discussion. Not only how is this cropping up in our kids, is it cropping up in our teaching staff, in our lead teachers, our team teachers, and our community educators, in which there are certain staff members getting the feedback or implementing, or certain staff members who are not getting that? We want to be as clear as possible when we talk about stating those implementation gaps so we can begin doing the action planning of closing it. We would then take the next 50 minutes creating a 30-day action plan where we scope and sequence out those key behaviors. We would use the change management strategies to really guide the conversation, but ultimately the ultimate product would be a who does what chart, in which we're listing everybody responsible for servicing students and everybody responsible for leading teams and giving feedback to coaches, and then stating on a weekly basis who is doing what. We would really hone in on indicator 1 of the collaborative planning conditions and the observation and feedback conditions, because again, the ultimate goal of this in regards to the action plan, we want to give ASU something that they can begin doing the very next day. The only way you can eat an elephant is one bite at a time, and what we don't want to do is overwhelm them with things to do, but simply saying on a week, what are 2 to 3 behaviors we can commit to after we've done this gap analysis between our success and our implementation gap that we can do, and what support will you need from instruction partners to do that? After that, we would then begin closing. We would agree on next steps, and then we would ask our learning questions rooted in the 3 questions I asked in the first performance task. What is the frequency of students using HQIM and grade level tasks in all aspects of the teaming model? How does the staff collaborate in using student work in HQIM to support daily grade level progress of their students? And how is each team member being developed to both improve individual capacity and make them a leader in change? Thank you.